Well, hello and welcome. I'm Christine, and thank you for being here. I'd like to say a shout out to everybody who has liked and subscribed to my channel. I think I reached 900 subscribers this week, which was really good. Very grateful for that, so a big thank you to that. Thank you for people who have asked questions or left comments about what they would like to see on the channel, and I'll continue to keep. My aim is to offer content that hopefully you can use and gain by it. Today I'm going to talk about what often is a difficult card that in the trumps, which is the death card. The unnamed card in a lot of cases, because in a lot of decks over time, because in medieval times when the death rate was very high, you wouldn't even mention the word death in case death came lurking to the door of your home and you would lose a loved one, because you had infant mortality, you had high mortality of women in childbirth. Most people only lived to about 35. They'd had plagues and pestilence, and people would die from common illnesses that we take for granted, which is good that we have evolved as societies to have extended life, but on one level it has removed us a little bit from death, in the sense that we can often look at an image and freak out. And what I'd like to say, this card, when it turns up in a reading, I want to cover it very first, is likely to evoke uncertainty with your sitter, or if the person you'll read, like that sitter means the person you're reading for, or even yourself if you're new to tarot and you doing a daily card, and this card turns up, you're, oh goodness, help, death has turned up. So my experience has been to address the presence of this card in a reading before others. Otherwise, the person you are reading for may not be able to focus anymore on the reading. And what I have found works for me is when I lay out the cards in a spread reading for someone and the card comes down, I look at all the cards, and then I sort of look to the client before I speak and see how their reaction is. I don't sort of turn the card over or place it down. This is my style. And then go, ooh, we better talk about that. I lay all the cards out. This is how I do it. You can have your own style. And then I also assess the cards, and then I look to the client and say, rather than being the all-knowing reader, I say, when you see this card, does anything come up for you at the moment? And then I wait and let them speak, because they will tell you whether it's making sense to them, or yes, they've got a loved one that's just passed or is passing, but they know about it and they are comfortable with it. And then you can say, well, do you want to move the reading into more about that situation? Or, it depends whether they're wanting a general reading or they're wanting certain questions answered. And then it's all in context to the question. Because if someone has been going through a horrible time at work, we'll say, in a job that they hate, and they're working under a manager, we'll say, that's giving them a hard time for whatever reason, and then the death card comes up in that's relevant, you can say, well, that's all going to come to the end, and that can bring relief. This card number 13, which is often unlucky for some, is also it's a prime number, So it marks a turning point in the sequence of trumps, depending where you put the Fool. And for me, the Fool can go anywhere. I don't have any place for the Fool in anymore. It's like I know you see it in books in the beginning, but for me, he can turn up anywhere because there's various decks where he's numbered, all sorts of things. This card is ruled by Scorpio, and it rules the 8th house of endings, amongst other things. And as I said, the thing then, if you're talking with your sitter, is to look at and think, well, let's look at the card. The card are bones, predominantly. You have a skeleton. And our skeletal system is our most basic support system, which allows us to stand upright, to make movement and change and everything else that we do possible. And the bones are symbolic to the indestructible soul spirit that Jung speaks about in his psychology. This card is about cutting away thing. He has a scythe. He's moving forward. He will be directional in different cards, and often in modern decks, like if you're looking at Rider-Waite-Smith, he's on a horse and he's heading somewhere, obviously. The horse in that deck is moving slow, so it is a very slow card compared to the Tower, if you like. So what's going to happen could be there's an element of slow to it, but it does happen. Or it can be the scythe, swift. Depends. With this one, with the scythe, I would say swift. He is stepping on these heads, which can be known as the parents. The death card has a strong concept of what's happened in the past. It's a card that turns up as a result of some sort of consequence or something that is happening. And so this is enabling us to let go of things that may have happened in our childhood or the way our parents did things. And we go, well, I'm not going to do that. That stops here with me. I'm going to do things my own way, and I'm going to clear it all away and do things in life my way. It can also be very equalizing because there's the crown, and as you know, death and endings happen to all of us. And also, I look at the crown sometimes and I think you can't take it with you, and it's about what you value, what you're holding on to, maybe in that material sense. To me, it's a very equalizing card. If you draw the death card, something will change. This card, and I often call it a he, and a lot of times it is drawn as a he, but in modern decks it could be anything. But this card, and we'll call it a he in this context of the Grimoire, he will banish unsupportive friends and lovers, unfulfilling work, and all things that's outdated, of no further use, which could be, as I said before, outdated parenting skills. You're going to do things differently and have your own way of doing things. And it makes space for the new. It's a clearing away. And the accompanying cards in the spread will help you to determine where or how that this change will manifest. Because in the sequence of things, death comes after the Hangman. Here he is here, and he's often to do with a situation where you may have been dwelling on something, ruminating on something, thinking about something, or maybe even knowing a situation that's unpleasant, that you're not happy with, but it's at an unconscious level. Things just don't seem right, but you can't put your finger on it, or maybe the situation is untenable, but you don't know what to do. So in the end, we all end up confronting what has kept us stuck from either habit, guilt, fear, or that sense of, well, there's no real need to change. And sometimes when you think of the hangman, it's there's that thing, well, I've thought it out, I've thought it all through, and you get that thing of enlightenment, but you know something has to change, but you're not sure. And death is the next step. Death provides the next step preceding the card before it of what has to change, that you can also remind you that you have a new understanding, new hope, you can start anew, you can evolve, and death will just cut things down. And the next card, and I'm using the cards in sequence, but it might be in a reading and it could be any card, but it to help in the sequence of things can also help in the beginning when you're learning to sort of get that feel of where the card is in the big scheme of things. The next card, either in a reading or in the sequence, tells us what will happen next. And after death, we have Temperance in the form of an angel, and she broadly shows us everything that the world is as it should be, and offers that comfort and assurance. And it's interesting to look here. Here is our, you know when trees get pruned and there's wounds? There's our often in wounds. This is where he's restricted, but he has enlightenment here, so perhaps he's been thinking and taking that time out or wondering what to do next, but hasn't quite reached the action stage. Because change, when you look at the change model, you have the action stage of change, and then you have the first step of what you're going to do and change, and then you know the things you're going to do. And it's very interesting because as a hypnotherapist, typically when I'll use smoking because it's a safer subject to talk about, someone may be thinking for a while that they're wanting to stop smoking and that it's not good for them for whatever reason. They want to make change, and a lot of times the change, it does happen in the session, but I always tell the client the real change happens when you took the step to pick up the phone and book the appointment and talk to me, because they talk to me when people ring me for an appointment. They talk to me. We have a chat, so we're not wasting. So I'm not wasting their money and their time and things. And so this is the next step. So in the model of change, this is the next step, and then you still have to do what needs to be done. And if you look at it, it's the red, because red is an action. So this is, the death card is not necessarily a static card. It is a card of change, changing from one state to another, step by step. And sometimes it's very good, it can bring relief, all those sort of things. But then after the next stage, you have the red of the scythe cutting, but then has provided a vessel of eternalness with the Temperance, because there's red in her card as well. So she's still continuing on with what needs to be done to maintain the change that was decided back here. I think that's helped to give the stopping smoking analogy, or a diet, or any change. But stopping smoking, in my view, isn't a judgment on someone that smokes. It's about just making change. That's where I'm at with that. So that is how I see that. You might notice here that I've got some lovely crystals of the amethyst, and amethyst can often be a stone that can help us see clearly as we're making change, and help us with change. And I think flat citrine can help with that as well. Put them there. Our cards are stones of change with that, so I sort of put them there intuitively, sort of thinking about them. Now, as you know, I look at Ben Doe's book quickly. There's other books you can look at with the cards. So I bookmarked the short version, but I'll have a little quick look at card 13 here. And his key words are cuts the past, coping with change, and highlights the essentials. And I felt that when I looked at the crown, what was important, what we value, what do we really need? Do we need to clear out the clutter and simplify our life to be able to move forward and feel lighter? So getting to Ben Dove's short explanation. Card 13, the end of something whose time has come. Cutting off past influences or attachments to dominant figures. Giving up the superfluous and keeping only the essential. Disintegration of the old makes room for the new. I think we sort of covered that in the talk just now. But what it also reminds me of, and I'll leave this as the last thought, it is a promise of renewal. Death is not the end, and that's how the Taoists view it. Death is not the end, my friend. It happens all around us, and it can be as simple as the sun setting each day. I'd love to see your thoughts or read your comments on your thoughts on the tarot card 13 of death, the unnamed card, the card that shall not be named. Please leave a comment about it. I'd love to let me know your experiences of when you very first turned this card over in your life, or when maybe you were reading for a friend or a family member and this card turned up. How did you handle it? What works for you? Because that way we can all help each other as other people read the posts on ideas on how they work with the card with when they're reading with it. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.